So, honey, do some of my strengths, some of my good qualities rub off on you? Or not rub off on you. I'm sorry, rub you the wrong
Yeah, they're
way.
rubbing off on
They
me.
are actually starting to rub off on you, but do they actually rub you the wrong way sometimes?
Not as much as they used to. Because when you ask me that question, I think of you're very detailed, and that would bother me at first. Like, oh my gosh, don't sweat the small stuff. But then now I've come to love that quality about you because it comes in so handy. And if I need to do something that's super detailed, I'll do my part and then I'll have you look it over. And it's great to have a second pair of eyes and someone that's so detailed.
Yeah, so you hear that? She appreciates me.
Yes, I do.
So this is, I guess, an introduction to Howard and Danielle Taylor's of the Marriage on Deck. They become great friends of ours, and so the title of their presentation is "Strengths plus Roles equals Success." And too many times, as husband and wives, we actually fight. Our strengths, each other's strengths, actually become sources of conflict. Instead of sources of conflict, it really should be. You should got to figure out how to work with each other with these strengths because they'll tend to complement each other. And if you understand how to leverage each other's strengths, you'll actually develop a good team.
And you can get a lot more done.
And get a lot more done, exactly. So they talked to us about this and kind of coming from a husband and wife working together in business. But the reality is this can be applied to all parts of your life as a married couple. Because whether it's at home, or maybe you're working together as a business, or maybe you're working separately, have your own two separate businesses, or you have two separate careers or ministry or whatever, you still got to figure out how to work together in life in general. And especially anytime you are physically together and working on the same project or whatever, business, that it's so important to work with each other's strengths as opposed to having that as a source of conflict.
Yeah, it creates a lot of harmony.
Yeah. So this is another one of those presentations from our Power Up Your Marriage and Business virtual retreat we had not too long ago. And this is definitely, all of the presentations were worth putting on the podcast. And so this is definitely one of those as well. So enjoy, everyone, and don't fight each other's strengths, right?
Utilize them.
Yeah, be a team. All right, listen up. This is going to be good.
Danielle and I, my beautiful bride of 15 years, are so excited to talk to you guys about a topic that we feel has been critical to our success and mitigating failure in business. We've all failed in business typically or in some portion of that. And we really had to carve out something that we felt was a secret sauce or a foundational principle. I heard Robert speak to fundamentals. It was a foundational principle in us beginning to see success in entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And what that is two things that equals an equation. And that is strengths plus roles equals success for Howard and Danielle. Strengths plus roles equals success. I'm going to talk about the strengths component. Mm-hmm. And then Danielle will talk about the roles component and how that plays into success in marriage and business, which is oftentimes a very hard space and difficult space to navigate. So excited to jump right into that today. You know, one of the things when Danielle and I found out that we both had a heart for entrepreneurship in our relationship and in our marriage is we begin to realize that success was critical to that. We didn't want to just get into business to do it. We just didn't want to get into business to have something to do. We wanted to get into business to ultimately be successful.
Right.
Now, that success is defined by many different ways for many different couples. For some, it's the freedom and getting time back in your day, maybe. For some, it's monetary and money. But for us, those things were ever present. But for us, it was enjoying our life together. We wanted to be able to do something, not just do it, but we wanted to be able to enjoy it. We want to be happy. We don't want to be miserable in business. And that enjoyment component wasn't immediately present for Danielle and I when we started this journey of marriage and entrepreneurship. You know, see, what we found was we tended to major in the minor and minor in the major. And a lot of people experienced that. But our major was pet peeves. Mm-hmm. Our majors were, she's different from me. She doesn't communicate the way I communicate. Mm-hmm. She's very organized. I'm very free and spirited, right? And so these, what we define as pet peeves, or we oftentimes call pet peeves, really exposes a character flaw or a hindrance to successful business in our home and oftentimes in business we found. And that is that we tend to spend most of our time majoring on weaknesses. Yeah. And as we all know in entrepreneurship, it is truly the strengths that drive business. It's the strengths that drive all major successful organizations, and our ability to focus on those strengths are what allows us to have engaged partners in business, engaged employees, et cetera, et cetera. When I spoke at the event that Robert and Kay were at, I talked about engagement briefly, and engagement is something for Danielle and I that allows us to enjoy what we're doing in the moment, just being engaged. And in marriage, having both parties engaged is critical, because I shared a brief story that when one person is disengaged from what's happening in the home, whether it's raising children or whether it's managing a business and being entrepreneurs, that disengaged person is not only in the boat with you. I use an analogy. When you're rowing a boat, you're trying to row a boat, and in business, oftentimes that boat is upstream. But not only is this person that's disengaged in the boat with you, when they're disengaged, they're rowing the boat in the opposite direction. And when you have somebody in a boat, when you're trying to row upstream, rowing in the opposite direction, that's something that you have to, as a leader, define, figure out, adjust, calibrate, and then begin to get them engaged. You can't just throw them out the boat. And sometimes that's what we want to do in marriages. And so what was critical for Danielle and I is that we had to define how we were going to note and focus on what was minor, but should have been major. And that was, what are our strengths in marriage? Oftentimes, those strengths, the thing about strengths is they take research. Yeah. Strengths are not always so ever present. Weaknesses are blaring. You ever notice how when you first meet somebody, you can think of all the little nuances about how they speak, or they say that over and over again, and it just annoys the life out of you, because weaknesses just jump off the page. They're very ever present, and they also are debilitating, whereas strengths are very cerebral. You know, you poll most people. Gallup does a poll. When you poll most people don't know what their strengths are. You ask an individual what are their strengths, they don't even know, because it takes time and research and even testing to find out what those strengths are. And so what Danielle and I found is, as we begin to, through time and through true grit and wanting to be successful, we began to find out what were Danielle's strengths and what were Howard's strengths. And as we leaned into what those strengths were, those strengths began to build engagement for us in our businesses. See, we realized that Danielle was an incredible administrator. Her gift of administration was amazing. My gift and my strength of vision was very strong. How I received her administration initially, I thought it was controlling and micromanaging, all these things. I saw the weakness in it, right? And that state would just kill our business meetings, frankly. We would sit down and have a business meeting, and we've had multiple businesses, from clothing lines to franchises. We would sit down and have a meeting, and I could not receive for about 2 minutes into that meeting what Danielle was trying to do, because it wasn't how I process organization and administration. Right. But when we found that gift of administration was a major strength for her, and why it was very important to not be always only organic, and that strength was going to allow her to really lay a solid foundation for almost anything that we did in business, then that focus on the strength allowed Danielle to be more engaged in perhaps what we were doing. We know in business and marriage, oftentimes what we're doing, and some folks that you'll even hear from today have multiple businesses, and those multiple businesses may be bred out of a passion for one particular individual. Maybe for me, it's hospitality management. Robert shared that I've been a hotel executive for some years. That may not be my wife's natural lean, and for her, fashion was one of the businesses that we did. And I may not have been the most passionate person about fashion. However, understanding that Danielle had strengths that could lend themselves well to my entrepreneurial abilities in the hospitality industry allowed for us to be able to spend time on these different passions together. And as I share with you all at the top, for us, success was defined by us being able to enjoy what we were doing together. And that was going to be business. And so as we began to take our emphasis off of these these pet peeves, these nuances, these weaknesses, we begin to grow business. You know, it's also said by strength finders that the average person goes to the grave or passes away with their weaknesses. The average person never overcomes their weaknesses. And so if in business, we spend time trying to get this person to change those weaknesses, it becomes very debilitating. Gallup also suggests that when you focus on strengths, that person is 6 times more productive. And productivity is critical to us defining success in entrepreneurship. It's very critical. So there's many examples of this, but one of the examples I love that love, and I call them Danielle and I's entrepreneurial doppelganger, is Chip and Joanna Jones. Chip and Joanna have a show called Fixer Upper. And what you see in Fixer Upper is the manifestation of a married couple who's juggling life, juggling children, juggling marriage, and juggling business. And what they do so effortlessly on the show is magnify each other's strengths.
That's right.
It is very present that Chip and Joanna, if you don't know about them, check out Fixer Upper, have different approaches to entrepreneurship. But what we have an opportunity to see in that those two individuals is a focus on strengths. And I'll leave you with this final point, not only a focus on where our strengths are and finding those strengths, but an admiration for those strengths. If you really want to start enjoying entrepreneurship together, begin to be the best fan and the best praise and the best cheerleader of your spouse's strengths. What you will find is that individual will not only be more productive, but they'll be more engaged. They will help you row that boat upstream until it feels like you're rowing downstream. And then that leads to the successes in entrepreneurship that you actually, in fact, need. This is a core fundamental and foundational principle to marriage and entrepreneurship, being able to define what strengths are and reduce your emphasis on weakness. Strong foundations lead to skyscraper skyline marriages. It's not important to only see tall buildings on the horizon, but it's more important to establish fundamental foundational principles that have been dug down deep in your marriage that holds those skyscraper successes up in business. And so with that said, we're going to transition into talking about how strengths lend themselves to the critical component of the equation. Remember, strengths plus roles
equals
success. And Danielle's going to talk to you guys a little bit about roles, and then we'll come together to conclude.
Excellent. I just want to tell you that was excellent.
That's my boo.
All right. So once again, hello, everyone. I am Danielle, co-founder of Marriage on Deck with my handsome husband here. I just wanted to get into the roles aspect, as Howard mentioned, and first saying that it is very critical and very important, like he mentioned, to identify, acknowledge, and appreciate each other's strengths, because at the end of the day, when business is over, you still have each other in the marriage, right? You still have each other to talk to and connect with. And so identifying those, appreciating them, acknowledging will go a long way beyond business into your marriage and helping every day, taking it day by day to go smoothly. So as I talk about roles and how it plays in the business success, I just want to identify the roles and responsibilities of it all. We always hear roles and responsibilities, right? Whether you're a manager, a leader, an employee, or something, you've heard the concept roles and responsibilities. So we're going to cut that down today about how that lends itself and what that actually looks like in a practical sense from our experience in doing business together over these last almost 15 years. So roles, when I say roles, I'm speaking of the specific position that you play in your business, whether it's your business, his business, or you guys' business, you have a position to play. And then the responsibilities, which are the specific tasks and descriptions and functions that you need to the specifics that you need to carry out according to those roles. So the first thing is Howard and he mentioned a couple different businesses, and we've had a ton of them. I don't know if you guys heard the podcast or not, but we've dibbled and dabbled in a lot of things and then realized we're going to stick with our strengths.
A lot of trial and error.
A lot of trial and error. Success here, loss there, but it's all, a learning opportunity. But one thing that we found, going back to Howard's point, is staying in our lane of doing what we're interested in and what our passions and experience and expertise is in really helped us actually find success. But nevertheless, one of those businesses was our online hospitality management school. It's a vocational school based off of the hotel management industry because that is Howard's experience and expertise. When we stepped out and launched this business, I obviously, like you said, I don't have any experience in the hotel business at all whatsoever, not even a little bit. I come from his main thing in the hotels is service first and customers always right and, cater to the customer and all of these things, just give them the pickle and whatever else. I come from a background in criminal justice where we are, customer service is non-existent and we really don't care. So when we came across the idea to start the vocational school, he was the visionary, as he mentioned. It was his idea. He's the brain behind it. He's the mastermind. He knows the operations forward, backward, and sideways. And then how to teach it to people was something that needed to come from him. That wasn't my strength, right? He already told you guys that my strength is in administration. It's in research. If you need something done, I will research day, night, and weekends, holidays, and everything to figure out how it's going to happen and how we can pull this off, right? If you need to know the legalities behind it, the policies, the governing boards or whatever, that's like more of my alley. I could have at that time said, okay, you're in the hotel industry and you want to start this hospitality business. I don't know anything about hotels, so I'm going to sit this one out.
Right.
And that I'm sure probably could have went, but would it have been great for us? Probably not. Instead, it's like, okay, we want to do this. How can I use what my strengths are to lend to what you're trying to do? Because his business is my business and we operate as a team, right? Sure. We're one, because the Bible says we're one, right? So because we're sharing this business, I want to be able to share and lend to him whatever strengths that I have to help the ship go forward. Fast forward years, that was, I think it was successful for us because we did it that way. Okay. We weren't stepping on each other's toes. I wasn't expecting him to look up anything. I wasn't expecting him to reach out. I wasn't expecting him to do any type of research. I had already assigned to myself because I said, my role is administration. My responsibility is going to research my butt off. I wasn't expecting him to do that. And he wasn't expecting me to come in and say, oh, this is how the operation should be. This is how the classes should look. These are the kind of teachers we should have. Here's the kind of curriculum and content we should be discussing with them on how to help them move and transition from one step to the next step in the hotel industry. He wasn't expecting me to do that because we sat down and talked about what are you going to do? What am I going to do? What does that even look like, right? Let's break this down. Who's responsible for marketing? Who's responsible for sales? Who's responsible for, sourcing learning management systems? Like who's going to do these things so that nothing falls between the cracks? Yes. And that's what helped us. Fast forward a couple years after that, we did a online women's clothing store. Okay. Plush Rose, right. Don't look it up because we sold it. Okay. I don't know what it's called now, but we had an online women's clothing store where I would have to go down to Los Angeles, look for, clothes that we wanted to sell on the site, et cetera, et cetera. Howard could have said, oh, it's women's clothes,
Not my thing.
It's not my thing. I see what you're wearing every day and that's good enough. Instead, he's down there in LA with me, helping me look at clothes, me and my cousin, going through the racks all day, store by store, doing these things that he could have said, this is not my area of expertise. I'm not interested, good for you. I'm praying for you. Just continue on with yourself. But because he stepped out of his comfort zone, because he involved himself and immersed himself in what I was interested in, what I was trying to do, he came in and showed me, hey, my role in this is number one, to support you. My other role is to help you do a cost per unit. He's looking at it. How much does this cost? How many pieces do you get? What do you plan on selling this at? What is the market going to support, right? For this type of thing. He helped me to realize those things. What type of woman, identify who you're actually talking to and who you're selling and how you're going to sell this stuff. I could have come across that, I'm sure, without him at some point and a bunch of time on Google, but instead I know that that's one of his strengths and he lent it to me freely. So we allowed ourselves to merge our roles and responsibilities so that we can move the business forward. Yes. Coming together on a common ground, and basically helping to move the relationship and the business relationship forward. Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to also point out is when you understand what your roles are, not just for marriage, because we know what our roles are within marriage. We know what our roles are as husbands and wives and mothers and fathers and parents and sisters and all these things. But when you come together to have a business, even if it's not in your wheelhouse, even if you don't want to have anything to do with it, you still play a role, okay? Absolutely. You may be a silent investor, Okay, you may be the one funding it, even though it's you guys' money, but you may be the funder. You may be the support person. Hey, I'll take the kids out while you work on A, B, and C. I will do this while you type up whatever. I will drive you to the sales appointment. I just will be there for you on a sideline supporting you. So you don't always have to have an active hand in the business to be a part of the business. The other thing that we talked to couples about is, in addition to if you don't want to be a part of it, you still need to be a part of it, is if something were to happen to one of you, God forbid, especially if your business is your sole source of income for your family, you need to be in the know. You don't need to know how all the parts move, but you need to know who the vendors are. You need to know who your contractors are. You need to know who your employees are. Where is your insurance information? Is there a binder somewhere? If something happens to one of us, or, God forbid, if something happens, the business needs to still be able to carry on. We know of a couple, the husband had a construction business. He unfortunately passed away early. The wife didn't know anything about the business, not a thing. She didn't know even who to call, who the employees were. She didn't know anything. She knew the name of the business, the website, and that's about it. Unfortunately, it didn't take long for her to lose the business, basically have to move out of her home, to bankruptcy, foreclosure, all of these different things, because she just didn't know. And why do that when you can avoid it? So at the very least, get your affairs in order, get it somewhere. If I'm saying, if you're not the type to merge businesses, or you don't really want them in your business, sometimes people feel like, oh, let's keep the business separate for whatever reason. But at the very least, get all of those things down somewhere. Get a desk manual, so that if anything were to happen to you and you couldn't continue on, that the business can still continue on and your family can still be taken care of. So coming together, figuring out our roles, figuring out our responsibilities, and holding to those, not micromanaging, not going in his lane and him not coming in my lane, helped us to have clarity in our relationship and in our business relation, in our marriage and in our business relationship. It helped us to communicate better and more effectively, gain insight. It just really helped us to move things forward in a smooth fashion. Whereas before, like Howard said, we were arguing and business meetings were ending after a minute and a half. We're just like, oh, well, if you hadn't this, and if you did, well, did you do this? Oh, I didn't do that. Well, I thought you were going to do it. Well, I didn't say I was going to do it, so I don't know how you thought that. All these different things that we get caught up in marriage. So if I were to leave you with anything and encourage you today, I would just encourage you to identify what your roles are, discover what those are, and talk about what that looks like. Even if you have to write it down. Howard talks about having an organization chart, just like we do at work and, in the corporate arena. Create an organization chart for your marriage, create an organization chart for your business. We know who's responsible for taking out the trash. We know who's responsible for cooking dinner. We know who's responsible for picking up the kids at 3 p.m. We know those things, but in our business, do you know who's responsible for the individual aspects of the business for the sake of your marriage?
Incredible.
Did you have anything you want to add?
That's you fine.
Oh, well, thank you.
And incredibly intelligent. What Danielle shared is so true about the realities of our home. What I shared, the strengths component had to become true in order for us to be productive. So you take those strengths plus the defined organizational chart roles, and that equals success for you. So the last thing that I'll leave you with is make sure to be intentional about defining what success looks like for you. It would be a great tragedy, and oftentimes is, when one person, and we've coached and counseled a lot of marriages, when one person has a goal of a North Star of achieving financial success, and another person has a North Star of just achieving free time, and the conversation not being clearly defined on your vision board, which we're big on Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision, make a plan. That's one of Danielle's favorite scriptures. So please ensure that you define and document what is success for you. God bless you guys. We thank you for giving us an opportunity to share out of our marriage what we believe is a core fundamental and foundational principle to business and marriage.
Wow. Thanks.
That was really good. Yes, thank you.
You even had 2 minutes to spare.
Yeah, well, we got some more stuff we want to talk about.
Got some more to share.
How are you, buddy?
So I love what you said too, Howard. The number one role that, when Danielle was starting that fashion business, you said the number one role you had was to support her, right? Even if you weren't going to work in the business or not. And all that stuff you said about, when one person's not working the business and they know nothing about the business, they're not involved at any level. It's dangerous, because we've seen the same thing. We've heard the same thing, where the living spouse is left with this mess, and they don't know who to trust in the organization. And a lot of times, even when they have partners, the business partners don't even do them well. And so you got to know, you got to know what's going on. So love it.
Thank you for listening to the Power Couples by Design podcast. We'd love to stay connected with you and provide valuable resources and encouragement for your marriage and business.
So you can subscribe to this podcast, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or go to our website, powercouplesbydesign.com, and get some of our free stuff. One of those free resources is our 8 Steps to a Thriving Marriage and Prosperous Business cheat sheet. We're here to help you build a thriving marriage and prosperous business. God bless you in your marriage, and see you next episode.